this conversation with Seth. So Seth and I have known each other for many years.
Yeah, let's not talk about how many.
No, let's not. Hey, do you know that I think you and I were born like within a week of each other?
No way. You got to be 10 years younger than me.
Yeah, I am. A week and 10 years.
That's what I thought you meant.
Yeah, it is. No, we look good. We look good for our age of 39. I think
exactly.
We're old enough.
So you're 310 or 326?
I'm actually 327.
I was close.
Yeah, right. Yeah, one way or the other.
But that was a really good year.
67 was a good year.
You go back and look at the top 10 songs that year, and Rolling Stone magazine, the Super Bowl, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, all founded that year.
Yeah. See, and the two of us popped into the world.
Exactly.
So
first heart transplant.
Yeah, right. All right. So this is a great way to kick this off. Let's just keep patting each other on the back. So this talk came up because a number of people on these calls said, hey, Rose, what do you collect? And it's kind of funny. I just don't often really show my collection but I love my collection, and I think it's really pretty different than the shows I curate. But it's personal to me. And Seth, I know yours is too. And that's why I thought this would be really good to have a conversation between the two of us as curators. And so for those of you who don't know Seth, he is the curator and director of the Booth Museum in Georgia. Imagine that. Western art in Georgia. Hey, Seth, would you tell people a little bit more about the booth and your background?
Sure. So the museum was founded in 2000 by an anonymous local family who had a great Western art collection. They also had collections in presidential materials and some contemporary Civil War art, interest in photography, and so on. And they founded the museum in 2003. It was at that time the second largest art museum in the state, 80,000 square feet. We've since added 40,000 square feet that we completed in 2009, and it made us the largest permanent exhibition space for Western art in the country, which my friends in Texas don't like to hear, but who cares? And among the accolades we've won over the years, last year the USA Today Readers Poll named us the best art museum in the whole dang country.
Well, there you go.
And I'm under no delusions we are the best museum necessarily, but we have the most loyal and enthusiastic member following. And they got out and supported it and put us over the top. And for that, I'm thankful. But we're also an affiliate of the Smithsonian Institution, and we belong to the Museums West Consortium, which includes your great Denver Art Museum there where you are.
And you know what? It is worth the trip to Georgia, just to go see the museum. It is spectacular. I mean, really, I have museum envy.
Well, and as long as you and I have been friends, I think Bill Wynn and I have been friends a year or two longer than that even.
Yeah.
And he was my introduction to the Coors show and to you and that whole art world out there in Denver. Some of the people you mentioned when they were coming on board, I remember being out there with them, and we did a tour a few years ago, some studios together, and so I have fond memories and great friends out in that area, and you've been nice enough to have me out on some of your panels, and I think I've judged 3 times and had a great time every time we've been out there. You know, I'll put on a great show with great hospitality.
That means a lot coming from you, coming from someone in the South. Although you're from the North, aren't you?
Originally,
Okay.
I got down here as quick as I could.
I love it. I love it. Hey, so why don't we dive in? And so right off the bat, Michael Smith is asking, are you going to tell everyone about 25 years as the curator? You look great. Oh, thanks, Michael. You know what? Yeah, I think that'll be another conversation. But maybe this conversation with Seth right now will kind of help inform a little bit about how I approach curation, though they're really kind of, I don't know, Seth, would you agree? Like curating for a museum or curating for a show is very different from what I want to have in my home or surround myself with, right?
Well, I think quality is first and foremost word on that. No matter what you're doing, I think you want to have quality artwork at home as you would in the show or the museum. I think the standards of that are slightly different. And I think what it comes down to in a lot of cases is size and price. What can you afford and what have you got room for?
Yeah.
And that reality sets in for a collector, no matter if you're a curator or private collector or art aficionado, there are realities involved and boundaries. Unless you're one of those rare people who's lucky to be an art collector with unlimited resources.
Oh, right.
And then you build your own museum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's not me. In fact, you know, that's such a good point. I can't afford most of the work that I curate into any show. I just can't afford it. So
Well, I call it the ultimate occupational hazard, working around all this great stuff by great people that we can't afford to live with.
yeah.
So we have to live through it vicariously through the museum or the show or getting to go to the studios of these great artists and visit them in their space, see where the magic happens. That's the payback that we get.
Yeah, that's really true. And honestly, I think, and you're probably in the same position. I keep feeling like I should write a book of all of these stories and artists that I've met and these conversations that, you know, like around a campfire or, you know, after the opening, you know, night and we all go out for cocktails or something and, you know, in studios, that's the really amazing thing that I think you take with you through your life, and being able to collect a piece of art from an artist is just, it's a true joy in my life.
Absolutely. And I'm sure the same is similar in your collection. The work of art sometimes is even secondary to my relationship with the artists themselves. Mm-hmm. And the piece really cements that relationship and reminds me of it every time I look at it. Yeah. And it deepens that personal relationship. And I know for collectors who have favorite artists who are also their favorite people. Yeah. And, you know, all the people in the Western art world are so cool and humble and down to earth and lovable people. One of my friends, collectors here, says meeting the artist is the kiss of death for your wallet.
Yes, it is. This is very true. This
because they're all so cool. You want to buy a piece from every one of them, but you can't.
You know, that is really true. And it's such a good point. And it is the, you know, and actually, like, why don't we dive in? Because like my workaround for that is to buy works on paper or small works. But why don't we dive in?
Yeah, tell me about these two images on the bottom. We didn't talk about those at all.
Oh, on our on this
title slide.
Yeah. Oh, these are two images. I don't own these. Boy, I sure wish I did. So Barbara Van Cleave is the photography on the right, and I have collected Barbara's books, but she's another one that I actually do really need to get something of hers in my collection. And I have to tell you, Seth, like this year, the work that Barbara put into the Coors show is some of my favorites. I mean, it's really, she's working in this series of these night images, and she really has this strength of looking at women, especially ranching women, which is just so important. And I think really something that isn't well photographed or painted, or unless it's done in kind of a romantic way. But Barbara, as a ranching woman, is so authentic, and her photos reflect that authenticity. And now she's playing with night photography and the stars and how all these things and conversations happen in the night and under the stars in the West. And they're very
I agree 100%. We've collected about 60 of her pieces in the last 2 years.
Gosh.
And we have now a great holding of her work, and also Jay Dussard's, who I consider kind of the male equivalent to her. Mm-hmm. And we're working on a couple of shows from the bodies of work of those two photographers that I think is going to be phenomenal together.
Man, so jealous. Don't let me into your stacks, because some things might get rolled up and snuck out in my giant purse.
I gotcha.
That other painting is Sophie Brown's, and that's a whole conversation in and of itself. In fact, tomorrow's talk, I'm going to have Ron Hicks and Sophie Brown, and we are going to be talking about what's behind the work and how what you see on the surface is the surface, and what's underneath it is filled with intention and emotion, and it's charged with something really different. So anyway,
she's one of the ones on my short list for acquisitions.
You should
here at the museum.
Absolutely.
So Rose, I thought I'd start at the bottom of my collection and work my way up. So here's my Charlie Russell. What do you think?
Yeah, one of your minor Charlie Russells, right? Yeah. I think I know where that work actually lives, Seth, and it's not in your home, my friend.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a print.
Nice try.
But one of the things Rose asked me about was about the first major piece you ever acquired. And I'm going to apologize in advance for the photography on some of the works in my collection. There's some odd angles in my house, and a lot of pieces that are under glass, there's glare. So forgive me for that. But I know Rose is going to talk about her first major piece that she ever got.
Yeah.
This is mine, the Kim Wiggins there that kind of dominates the left side of this photograph. And you can't tell very well, but the bottom right there, the little black frame, there's a white drawing in there. And my family and I had the chance to visit Kim's studio in 2005 when we took a team from the museum out to compete in the World Chuckwagon Cooking Championships in Ruidoso, New Mexico. And while we were out there, we went over to Roswell to see Kim. And he sent us a little sketch to thank us for coming to visit him in the studio. Wow. Now, we should be thanking him for letting us come visit, right?
Yeah.
But he sends us the sketch for thanking us for coming. Little did I know it's part of the cocaine theory of marketing.
Oh, yeah.
So you give them a little hit, they'll be back for more. So sure enough, within a year, I was going back to him and say, hey, would you turn this little sketch you sent us into a painting? We'd really like to have it for our home. And it was an anniversary present. And there's a lot of meaning behind it. And I love Kim's work, and I think he's one of the original artists out there among a lot of sameness. And you can't walk in a room and not tell his work immediately, and that's very intentional. He tells a great story about going to one of his first art shows and seeing a painting across the way and thinking it was his, and he ran over to look at it, and it wasn't. It was some other artist's work. And he said, that'll never happen to me again. And he consciously went out and established the style that we know today. And just real quickly, some other artists represented in this picture, Joe Netherwood, Mark McDowell, Orland Joe did the stone piece in the foreground there, a little Dave McGarry, and a little paper piece by the Ekmans. But this is one of my favorite little corners in the house because of that painting. And Rose, I know you have a similar story about this painting in your collection.
But hey, Seth, Mark Smith has said, are they showing the paintings? I only see their faces. So are you not getting our screen share? I have that. I'm viewing Seth's screen, but is that not coming through? Because I'm seeing his screen.
It's saying here I'm screen sharing.
Yeah, I see your screen sharing too.
It says it's recording.
Could you all let me know if you're getting the images on the screen?
Also, if you
seeing it,
you may have to toggle between gallery view and speaker view.
Actually do that. I cannot see Seth. I'm seeing images. Okay, so people are seeing images.
Good.
I'm seeing Phil Wynn. Okay, good. Okay, thanks everybody. And I have mine set so that, like, if you take it, put it on side-by-side gallery instead of speaker view, and then the art will stay up the whole time. Does that make sense to everybody? That would be good. Because then that way it won't, and I think there's a lag in Zoom too sometimes when you go speaker view. So hopefully that helps everybody, but definitely let me know. Yeah, okay, so sorry, Seth, your first piece, major piece, your first addictive.
Kim Wiggins.
The Kim Wiggins.
And this is yours.
this was mine, this Ron Hicks. And this was when I did not have 2 nickels to rub together. I was literally living off beans and rice. And I was working in a gallery, and I always tell people this story. Like at this time, in the newspaper, it came out with what the government estimated as the poverty level, and I read that article, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me that I was living at the poverty level. I didn't even know it. It didn't occur to me because I just loved what I was doing so much, working at this gallery, and I didn't have a television, and I just, whatever I could scrape together, I bought beans, rice, and I bought a Ron Hicks painting. And this one was in his studio, and this was a painting I saw there. And Ron was still working for Prime Star in the complaint department and painting at night. And I had known him, I'd seen him around at the Art Students League, and this guy really has something. He's amazing, and started to get to know him. And that was almost 30 years ago. And he was so gracious. And I think I bought this for $500, and it's now worth, close to 15 to 18,000, I think.
What attracted you to it, Rose?
What attracted me to it was it's this barber right here that's cutting the guy that's closest to us, and he kind of has this look on his face like, I am just barely tolerating you standing here, painter boy. Yeah, him. But it's what he's kind of doing, and how Ron conveyed this emotion in this painting of Ron is so in this painting, in my sense of it, that, and it was just so very real. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to go down to 5 Points and pop into this barbershop. Like, Ron is a Black artist, and he was painting everything that's so familiar to him in Denver in 5 Points, where he was living down the street or near this. And it just, to me, it spoke so much of who Ron was and is. And I don't know, I didn't really register like, oh, this is African-American subject, or I'm buying, a Black artist work or something. It struck me at my core that this is Ron communicating something that is part of his life to me, and I just had to have it.
So a question popped up since you mentioned how much it's gone in value. How much does that enter into your thought process when buying a work?
You know what? It doesn't really. So I do appraise my collection on a fairly regular basis, probably more than most people do, because I want to make sure everything's insured. And I do check my work all the time just to make sure that nothing is getting damaged, or if I need to reframe something. I'm really very careful with everything that I own, to the point when my kids were little, and I have twin boys, and of course they had Nerf swords and footballs and everything, and they never hurt a single piece of art. They just grew up around art with this reverence to it as well. And so when I look at buying something, the time when price becomes a factor is when I really can't afford it, which is most often, and I have to try and figure out a way to afford it. But that it goes up in value, I want it to, and I want artists to continue. But I can tell you, I have works in my collection that are simply I had a connection with, and they won't. If there were an auction today and my collection went up, a bunch of it would be bought in or passed. It maybe go for $50 or something, but that doesn't really matter to me. What matters is my connection, and that I'm living with friends, right? And so what's the value that you put on that?
Right. So I'm a little the opposite in that I'm more like the cobbler whose kids have no shoes. I have terrible lighting. I don't fix the frames that need to be fixed. My provenance records are horrible.
Oh,
I don't even have the collection insured.
oh, Seth. I'm going to fly out tomorrow and fix this. You're making me crazy.
Because I want to spend the money on the next piece of art that comes along.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of collectors that are that way. They won't spend a dime on a frame or lighting in their house. They just want to find that next piece.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that is detrimental in some ways that you're not fully enjoying what you have because it's not displayed to best effect.
Yeah.
But I can't help it. And I'm also a bottom feeder at auction, which is where I find most of my stuff. And so I'm not looking at, is it going to go up? I'm looking at, am I getting value? And so my ultimate thrill is to find a small piece, you know, a sketch or a small painting, finished piece, even a mid-sized piece by an artist who I have a relationship with already that I can buy for 20, 30 cents on the dollar versus what it ought to be worth, which in today's auction market, there's a lot of pieces out there like that because of these older collectors passing on.
Right. Right.
And I used to feel guilty about that. And I would not tell my artist friends that I bought the pieces at auction because I was ashamed of how little I paid for them. But a couple of them I did tell. They said, well, you paid $100 more than the next guy, and I'm glad you have it and not them.
Yeah. 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 You know what? And that's a tough thing. What sells at auction and how low those things go oftentimes. And I can tell you on the side of, I've gone in and appraised collections with other appraisers, you know, and we'll tag team some major collections. And when things go for those very low prices, which tends to happen with our artists in the Western United States primarily, it is that when we appraise a collection after the person or for an estate or whatever for the IRS, they may have bought something for $10,000 and we have to put a $150 tag on it because that's what the auction will bear. And so that's, you know, it's a tough part of it. Have your collection appraised while you're alive and while the artists are alive so that you can have a fair market value appraisal on it. And I think I'm just going to put that out there because it will help your kids and whoever you leave this artwork to really know it's a value and not have a garage sale and toss stuff out there. Because that's where I have found a number of pieces, FYI, right, well, that the family didn't know.
Well, like I said, I'm the cobbler whose kids have no shoes because I'm constantly harping on our collectors to keep their provenance records up to date, have current appraisals and all those things, have those conversations with their kids now. Get pieces that the kids may want in their hands now, or at least their names on the back of them now. Don't let it be a free-for-all later. And every one of our collectors has a note in their will that says, kids, don't do anything with the art till you talk to Seth.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So moving on to one of my favorite pieces that I thought related to your Hicks is this piece by Rob Rail. And he's a Hispanic artist in Santa Fe, originally from LA. And this piece has got a very storied and somewhat controversial past that involves rap singers, tattoos, dogfighting, and other nefarious things. But I'm not going to go into all those details. I'll leave you in suspense.
Wow.
But, in the end, this is the universal, everybody wants to be a cowboy image, translated through Rob Rail's eyes growing up in Los Angeles. In kind of a gang culture where some of them were cowboy personas, which I thought was interesting.
Wow.
And one of our educational folks at the museum came to my house one time, and from way, way across the room where he couldn't have possibly seen the name on this piece, he said, man, is that a Rob Rail? And I said, yeah, how do you know that? He said, oh, dude, he's the hottest skateboard artist in the country.
Really?
So he does custom skateboards for all the high-end X Game athletes and stuff.
Oh my God.
That's one of his claim to fames, apparently. So it just went up 1,000.
Yeah, right. You know, that's kind of cool though. And I want you to talk about, because you have an eye for folk art as well. And I think that's such a fascinating addition to any collection. So when we get to those, I really want to talk about
Okay.
that. What a great grab on that.
So this wall is what's right in front of you, right, Rose?
It is. It's what I'm looking at right now. Yeah.
So if we spun the camera around, this is what you'd be looking at.
Yeah, behind me. Right. Exactly. My books and more books and books on the floor, and yeah, books over here, little painting.
And so how did you pick these pieces? How did you arrange them? And how does it inform your day?
Okay, I'm going to say this because I know my husband isn't on this call. He doesn't particularly care for these works of art. And he's more literal. He doesn't have an art background side. He's kind of a sports guy. And so I kind of got to the point where I was like, these mean a lot to me. So I just salon hung everything. And my office is packed with art, floor to ceiling, and all the way around. And this is just stuff that means a lot to me. And like this mask, this African mask that's to the left of my computer. I found that when I was out at the Preta West show, and there was a man who brought a lot of artifacts over, and he was in Oklahoma City, and Mark Daly took me there to see what this guy had. And this is a female mask, and it has a lot to do with the goddess power and things like that. And so I look at that every day, and I love it. It just has an energy to it. And the skull, that's a monotype that is by a friend of mine, and talk about a work that isn't going to sell for anything at auction. Doug Arian is a poet and a philanthropist and a businessman, and he does printmaking, and he is a very dear friend of mine, and I wanted to own something. The horse head that's down below that is a Melanie Yazzie that was in the Coors show years ago, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I love Melanie and everything about her and her work and her Native American spirituality that I think shines through everything she does. And I'll see people come into the Coors show, and they either respond or they walk right past it. It's a fascinating thing to me that what art gives off to certain people. And Seth, that painting that is of the Kabuki doll.
Yeah.
With those, the Origami Swans, that painting is by, it's a pastel, and it's by a woman here in Denver named Deborah Bays. And I wish you could see it in person. She actually painted that 3 times because she could not get the angles just right. She was basing it off the golden mean and these wavelengths, and she kept painting it and trying to get the armature and the floating birds to work. And that's the 3rd time she painted it. And she said, I finally got it. And I just was so drawn into it. It blew my mind. So yeah, that one right there. Yeah. So I love the piece. I love the drama of it. And I also just so appreciated Deb's dogged determination to make this piece sing. And I just reacted to it, but then hearing Deb talk about the process and how painstaking it was to get this piece to flow and those origami birds to fly in and out of the light like that, and to, create this very theatrical performance of a still life. It was just astounding to me.
So Rose, we're about halfway through our hour.
My God, we better pick it up.
So we need to pick up the pace a little bit. We hit the artists on these other pieces.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we just click through? These are they're kind of personal to works, in different ways, but yeah, let's click through and see.
Well, hit the ones that aren't later in the show that are here. Well, like the landscape.
So that landscape is by an artist who lives in Uray, and she actually was going through a tough time, and she came and stayed at my house when I had a little house downtown. And she was going to only stay for a week. She stayed for about 2 months. This is when all your friends are artists. And so she stayed. And when she said, you know what, I'm ready to head home. When I came back that day, there was this painting sitting in my home as a thank you.
Oh, cool.
And it's right out the front window. So, yeah.
Right. All right. And we'll be looking at some of these other ones in a little bit anyway, right?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Yeah, so word to the wise, when you have artist friends, just be careful when they need a place to stay for a couple days.
So this one is spectacular.
Okay, this one is right in front of me right now. And this is a Kuang Ho painting. And I think I was telling you about this, Seth, that this to me is quintessential Kuang Ho. Kuang is constantly striving, constantly pushing himself. This is oil and encaustic. And you can see where he has put that wax on top and mixed in with the oil and then carved back in. You can see the wood of the panel and just a lot of mark making. And it's called Ophelia. And I just absolutely fell in love with this painting. And it's on a cradle board. And it really literally hangs in front of me. And
Oops.
oh,
Sorry.
and it just, this painting for me as a writer, and just knowing Kuang so well, this strikes me on so many levels, and in a strange way, it motivates me every day to stay focused and keep working really hard and keep trying to bring art and poetry into my writing.
Cool. So this is another wall in my house, one of my favorite spots. And my wife is an inveterate decorator for holidays. So you can see she's already got the Valentine decorations out.
Aww.
And a couple of Charlie Ringer kinetic sculptures mixed in there. Vic Payne in the lower right, Jason Rich on the right, and then Jeremy Winboard, who's a very talented young artist, on the right of that.
Wow.
Above the stereo there is Amy Watts. She's an artist here in Georgia. And that's a piece my wife commissioned for me. And her idea was, that's me headed west on a horse. And those cows out in front of me are our members, and I'm herding them going west on our member trips we take. And then there's a lot of symbology spread around the painting. There's some Parkinson symbols.
Wow.
Up there in the top center, there's my house, and my kids are the sun and the moon and so on. It's very, very kind of surreal yet sentimental painting. And then on the left is Suzanne Baker, who I think is a really great underrated female artist out in California.
Mm-hmm.
But probably my favorite on that wall is this Logan piece.
Yeah, that's
And
wonderful.
of course, that's Rancho de Taos Church, which every artist worth their salt in the last 150 years has painted or photographed that. But I thought Logan did a really nice job with his color study and juxtaposing that incredible form against different colors. And I thought it was just framed so well and masterfully to complement the colors. And I got lucky enough to steal this out of an auction. Funny story, I actually called him after I got it. And I said, congratulations. And he said, why? And I said, you're now in the Hopkins collection. And he said, what'd you get? And I told him what it was. He said, damn, that was today? Because he was going to buy it back for the studio collection. And it was a 2-day auction, and he thought it was in the second day. So I felt pretty good about it, that he was going to possibly want it back. So
Yeah,
I
for
told him he knows where it is when he's ready for it.
Nice. Hey, so, okay, this next one is displaying small works. And this is like what I was saying in the beginning, how I've been able to collect things on my budget is to get works on paper or smaller things. And hey, Seth, do you see that little bird behind the railing over there?
Yeah, who is that?
That's by the world famous artist Rose Glazer before she was.
Oh, really?
Fredrick.
How about that?
Yeah.
I can guess some of the other ones. Looks like Leon Lockridge and Ted Waddell.
There you go.
Ray Roberts, maybe?
No, let me see. So above the Waddell is a Jay Moore.
Oh, Jay Moore. Okay, great. And it's at a Weckbach?
Yeah, that's right. That figure above it in the big wide gold frame is a little Kuang Ho. And then the one to the right is an artist. I don't know if he's still painting, Mike Natali. But that one I grabbed because many, many years ago, it was like in that gloaming time of day. And it reminded me of growing up in the Midwest as a kid, and you'd stay out and get bit by mosquitoes and catch fireflies. And it just, it hit me in a way. And so I bought it. And the one above.
That's all that matters.
That's right. Right. And the one above that's cut off there is a little Kuang Ho. And that was one from the Taos fires, in around Christmas when they do the fires at the Taos Pueblo, and they have
luminaries and all that.
That's right. And they build the big bonfires, and that he painted on location there.
How cool.
Yeah.
So zooming in on a couple of those.
Yeah.
Leon Lockridge, I think he's a favorite of both of ours.
Yeah, for sure.
And I have been in his studio 2 or 3 times when I've been out there. And he's explained all these processes of all these different printmaking methods to me several times, very patiently. I still have no clue how they do this.
Yeah, I just kind of smile and nod.
Especially the reductive woodblock. I mean, that's like three-dimensional upside down backwards chess.
Exactly. Yeah, I told Leon that I'm pretty sure he's dyslexic if he hasn't already been diagnosed as such, because there's no way that makes sense to anyone but him. And here's yours, little Leon.
Yep, called Tower Study.
Nice.
And I think Bill Wynn turned me on to him in the beginning. He has a wonderful collection of Leon's work, and I think that's the first time I ever saw it, was I went to his house on the first trip I came to Coors.
Nice. Yeah.
So I have Coors to thank for having that piece.
Yay. Oh, and your Waddell.
Here's my Waddell. I have a drawing like the one you have, but this is the woodblock print that I have also.
Beautiful.
And I use this when I teach elements of art for negative space.
Oh, good.
And it's kind of funny. My wife didn't understand negative space when we first were talking about it. Mm-hmm. She couldn't see the horse for a little while.
Oh, are you kidding me? Wow.
Just the way she was looking at it, she didn't see it. And it's one of those things, once you do see something like that, you can never not see the rest of it,
Right. Oh, that's cool. That's amazing.
And then this is an incredible painting.
Yeah, this is my big Len Schmiel. And this is actually, I just measured it the other day. It is, what did I tell you? Is it 30?
24 by 30, something like that?
I think it might even be bigger than that. I think it's 30 by 41.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's called Rebirth. And the crazy thing about this, so this is in the dining room upstairs, and this painting, for whatever reason, when I am stressed out, or maybe on a call that's getting a little contentious, or it's just, or we're just excited about something, and
you never have contentious phone calls, do you?
Well, no, I mean, I'm just, if I did, but no, I mean, okay, seriously, stressful situations, I will actually look up and I am sitting in front of this painting. Like, I have wandered with the phone until I'm right in front of this painting. And I feel like I just feel my blood pressure come down. And there's something about this piece that it was a major purchase for me and Dave. We bought it. I mean,
this is a major price tag, right?
Yeah. This was a big deal. This was a big deal for us. And the photo doesn't even do it justice, if you can believe that. It's just so.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
We had Lynn out when we had the Papa group, Plein Air Painters of America, doing a workshop a couple of years ago, and we had some of the artists doing evening lectures in addition to the instruction during the day for both collectors and artists. When it was Lynn's turn, the entire theater was full, and every student, every slide, was holding their iPhone up and taking a picture of every slide. I'm standing in the back, and it's just this constant up and down with these iPhones and people taking pictures of his work while he was talking about it. Mm-hmm. And he's certainly one of the masters of composition. If you look at this piece, this little dark part of the creek,
Yep.
just this little bit showing right here makes that whole painting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's amazing. You can look at every single brushstroke, you know, and where that water is kind of running out from under the dogwoods or whatever those are. There are little jewel tone bits of color in there that just moves like the water is moving through it. You can hear this painting breathe. It's unbelievable.
I remember the first time I saw Chuck Griffith's collection, and we lost him a few years ago. What a great collector and guy he was. But he had some major Len Schmiel paintings of the water series that just blew me away.
Yeah.
Did
they loan those permanently to you, some of them?
No, we have not yet.
You should work on that. They have some, those are spectacular, really.
And then this is a lousy picture of a small sketch, but this is a Josh Elliott little sketch. When I was on a trip to Glacier National Park with a friend of mine a few years ago, we were at Logan Pass on July 4th, the top of Glacier Park. And it was just so beautiful. When we were on our way back out of there, we stopped in Helena and visited Josh. And I said, if I ever get any real money, I want you to do a painting of part of Glacier for me. And so he sent me this sketch as a down payment for eventually getting a major painting of Glacier of his.
Wow.
And I think he's one of the most talented young landscape painters we have.
He is. Yep, he is. Okay, so you know what? It's interesting. I think somebody asked about finding new up and coming artists, and
right.
Mm-hmm. And this is.
So they were saying, do you buy young artists hoping to find the next Van Gogh?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's really a hallmark of the Coors show, is something that I strive to do, is find completely unknown artists and throw them in the mix. And this is a huge conversation for another time, but I really have questions that I ask artists. I need to see the work in person if they're completely unknown, and I spend time with them, and really I'm looking for, they're not set questions, but I'm listening for what's in their heart and soul, and that this is their life's vocation. It's like they've chosen to be a nun or a priest this is their vocation, right? And that's how I know that the work is going to continue to go up in value, because they're going to continue to push themselves forward, and they're going to continue striving to be a better and better artist along the way.
And so that helps you make the decision of whether or not to put them in the show. What puts it over the top that you want to buy a piece for yourself?
Well, actually, I kind of always want to buy something for myself. Kind of greedy that way. But this one, David Grossman, I was considering his work. Actually, he had walked up to me at the Coors show a couple times and asked if I would look at his work. And I said, absolutely. And then like a year went by and he came back to the Coors show and he said, I'm ready to show you my work. I'm like, great, just send me some JPEGs. And he sent me these JPEGs. And I remember thinking, oh my God, if these are what I think they are, this is going to be major. And so I called him and said, can I see your work anywhere? He said, well, I don't show anywhere. I don't have a gallery. I've really just kind of gotten out of art school and I don't have any representation. So he brought his work to me so I could see it. And every piece he unwrapped was stunning. And I remember looking at this painting and almost just crying. And I was just so like, this guy is really the real deal. And when he left, I walked over to my husband's office and I said, we're buying one of those, right? And he said, yeah, which one? And I said, I want this one. So I called David back and I said, could you return? I'd like to buy that painting from you. And it had already been in a show. So I grabbed it and then I put him in the Coors show the next year. And everything sold. And the artists were coming up to me saying, who is this? This guy, do you think he'll trade with me? Like really well-established artists. And I called several galleries and said, I have somebody and you should grab him right now. And immediately he was in major galleries across the country, and a London gallery picked him up, and the rest is history. So.
Well, and we aren't exactly doing that in that we're not looking for people who are just entering the market generally. You know, our bar is a little higher in terms of having some established track record, you know, having been in a major gallery and some shows like a Coors and so on. Yeah. But we are always trying to look at being the cutting edge of museums, at least. Yeah. And being much more entrepreneurial than most of the other Western museums that are, you know, have the great historic collections, which are wonderful. But we've tried to make our niche being the leading collectors of living artists, whether they're doing the traditional style or this more contemporary style Western art. And so in order to stay on the front edge of that, we're trying to look for new talent all the time as well. And Coors is one of the places we look for that.
Yay! And
one of the people that we found in that Coors show was Maeve Eichelberger, who you discovered.
Yes. Yeah, this is a piece I bought of Maeve's when I was in her studio. She'd been in the Coors show for a few years, and I saw this piece. And again, you know, there's that personal connection. I love Maeve's work and had been wanting to get something. And I saw this. And so first of all, the photos are from the National Western Stock Show. And they're on the grounds. And secondly, that little boy, it's called Little Cowboy. And that little boy was walking through the stockyards, I think she said. Well, those stockyards have since been changed. They're not there anymore. They've revamped them. And so to me, this was my 25th show with the National Western, with the Coors show. And this piece has such a value in my heart because of my connection with the National Western and my love of it. But also that little boy, just, of course, having boys, it just reminded me of when they were kids and how they loved to play being grown up. And so it just was so many things, this wonderful young artist who just keeps growing and expanding. And she's fearless. I mean, she inspires me to be fearless, and that connection with the National Western. And this is
it inspired me as well. This is not a piece in my collection. This is actually one I bought for the museum from the Coors show. And this is one where I walked around the corner at Coors that year and I went, oh my God, something new. Because I go to so many of these shows and galleries and the work starts to run together a little bit some days, or more than some days sometimes. But this was just a completely new medium with the photographs printed on the plexi and then mounted on the standoffs to create these wonderful lighting effects and juxtapositions. And some of it's upside down. Who cares?
Yeah.
I just thought it was an incredibly powerful work, and it was something new and different and fresh. And then I met her, and she was new and different and fresh as well. And that was a great combination. Yeah. And it's been a great relationship. She's been out to the museum a couple of times to do demos and talks at the museum, and has become a great friend of the museum. Now, I'm a little mad at you about the pieces on the right, though, because those are the first major pieces my wife ever bought at a show. And they're not necessarily my favorites, but she likes them. So, okay, she lets me have mine. I'll let her have hers. But this is Mrs. Scott, and these are textile pieces, and they're actually padded, and so they stick out from the frame a little bit. And her son actually loves them too, and so he's going to inherit these pieces for sure. Nice. And he was at the show when we bought it as well. I don't know if you remember the last time we were out there and bought these.
I do. Yeah.
Joyce had her two kids. We were out skiing and tubing and stuff that week, and so it was fun to see her kids get involved in something art-wise. Yeah. We've only been married a few years, and so her kids haven't grown up around the art thing like mine did in our blended family. but it was cool to see them excited that their mom was buying a major piece of art. So
that's so awesome. That's so great.
Speaking of major pieces.
This one's Sharon Evans, and Sharon is an artist and a very dear friend of mine. And I know so many artists, and our relationships run across a lot of different things. And Sharon's one of those people that has become a very close personal friend of mine. And she asked what I do, and I also, as an art form, I write short stories and I do a lot of writing. And she asked if I would share one, and I shared one called Awake, and which is about a woman and her horse, and it's a little dark, but I shared it with her, and Sharon responded to my short story by creating this painting. And she actually sent it to the Coors show, and I remember seeing it and just kind of shaking that I couldn't believe an artist had responded to my writing in this way. And it was just so perfect, and it just meant so much to me to have this connection with a visual artist with my writing. And actually Seth, my advisory committee with the Coors show, who was just so phenomenal, they got together and bought this piece for me as a thank you, because they knew how much it meant to me. And I think Sharon gave them a discount so they could do that. So it just
wonderful.
A lot of meaning for me. So,
well, a similar story for me on the next piece coming up. This is John Nieto, and I'm sorry for the glare in the image there, but I went to his studio right before we were doing a show for him, and he was working on these pieces out of cut paper. And so if you know his work, it's painted symbols and work like this. But he had read about Matisse making pieces collaged out of colored paper and had decided to see if he could do the same thing. So these are all handmade sheets of paper that were hand colored through some kind of process. I don't know what that is, that he acquired. And then he was cutting them out and putting them into the outline like his paintings. And he was like a kid in the candy store. He was having so much fun doing this and challenging himself. And he had not let anybody see any of them to that point. And he asked me, should we put some of these in the show? And I said, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we don't ever sell work out of our shows per se. I mean, the work can be for sale. There's a price list, but we're not involved in it. It's between the collectors and the artist, and we're not a sale venue. And occasionally a piece or two would get sold. That's not why we do it. Yeah. All 8 of those sold in about 30 seconds the night we opened the show.
Wow.
People were so enamored by them, and they were fairly low price. Wow. Later that evening, Susan McGarry came to me and said, hey, I'm writing this book on John, and he wants you to do the foreword.
Oh.
Now, I had met him twice.
Wow.
And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, John wants you to do the foreword to this new book I'm writing on him. I was like, he doesn't even know me. She said, well, he knows you well enough. He wants you to do the foreword. And she said, how much do you want to be paid? And I said, I don't want to be paid. I want him to do one of these cutouts for me. Wow. So this was my payment for writing the foreword to his book.
Yes.
Which otherwise is a pretty cool book until they asked some yahoo from Georgia to write the foreword.
Oh my gosh. Well, we have to talk about sculpture because we both collect sculpture. And we both have Steve Kestrel's. This one is the deer egg that I wanted and Dave got for me when I was pregnant with my twins that I jokingly say weighed almost as much as this flippin' sculpture did. That's bronze.
That's the sumo kids?
Yeah, my sumo twins. Skip Whitcomb called them the sumo twins. They were just so big and fat and good problem.
I had one like that too.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a very cool piece and a great tie-in. This is a piece that sits on the counter in my kitchen. You can see right behind the kitchen there.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And this is called Quorum. And so Steve tells a great story about this piece. Was inspired by camping one night out west and waking up in the middle of the night and looking up and seeing these 3 owls sitting on the same branch. And one of them was going on and on, chattering and talking about something. One of them was rolling their eyes back in their head going, oh my God, not this story again. And the third one was going, geez, will this guy ever shut up? All it does is talk and talk and talk. And so it's called quorum, but I thought it should be called pontification.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I had a cast of this, which I lost in a divorce.
Oh.
And similar to your story, some of our collector members found out about that. And we were on a trip to Santa Fe. They saw a cast of this at Gerald Peters, and they all chipped in and got it for me. And so it's in my kitchen ever since. And I've had 2 different people come in my house and see it, and I've told them that story. And when I said pontification, they got this look on their face. Found out later they had bought pieces because pontification was kind of an inside joke in their family, that mom or dad were known to pontificate from time to time. And so this was a little reminder to keep that in check.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, anything Steve Kestrel does too, right?
Right.
Oh, we must be getting to the end of our conversation, Seth.
Yes, unfortunately. We're going to go to the dogs here at the end.
Going to the dogs.
So Rose is going to finish up by showing you her dog painting, but I couldn't let that go unbalanced by not showing my wife's dog. And this is by Amy Watts, the same lady who did the cowboy painting of me in the middle of my stereo. If you remember that one.
Yes.
And just catching up on a couple questions here, Rose. They want to know where they can see your short stories.
You know, I don't write enough of them. I haven't really even tried to get them published. So I guess you'll just have to wait until I find time and actually do that. I really don't share them very often. It was just kind of a strange thing that I shared that story with Sharon. I don't, she's just very close. But I would say this, that with things that are really a personal art form, it's, to me, it's sort of like a trusted tribe when I share something, because they're just, I don't know. I don't know why I feel that way about my stories, but maybe,
especially when you're asking all these artists to put themselves out there in front of this crowd and get the immediate feedback of whether it's going to sell or not.
Yeah.
You got to be jumping out there on the limb with them, Rose. You can't be playing it safe.
Well, you know what? You know what? I will say this. I put my writing out there all the time. I'm constantly writing. I write for magazines but when it comes to short stories, I mean, they're just, well, you know how it is. Like, there are brilliant short story writers that I just love and admire. And so it's just,
maybe you're one of them. We don't know it yet.
Well, maybe, right? It's an art form that I just like to experiment with, and well, maybe I'll put them out someday. I just,
come on, jump out there.
Okay.
Somebody else?
I'll go ahead and read it. Never mind. I'm not.
Okay. Well, somebody else said to make sure they see the Skip Whitcomb show, the 4-man show at Steamboat.
Yeah.
Which I would highly recommend that. I did some writing on that myself.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maeve Eichelberger says she's blushing. Thank you both for the kind comments. What a privilege this was. Thanks. We thank you for tuning in. Maybe a book of Rose's short stories could be for the patrons of the Coors show.
Wow.
I like that idea.
Yeah, right.
All right. So we've seen my dog.
Okay.
Now we'll see Rose's.
So this painting that we're going to end on, this is, when I was saying that I think I've got a number of paintings that if my collection went up for auction, they'd maybe get $50 for, and I think this little Kuang Ho would be one of those that would be overlooked if it even sold. But this painting is a dog that I had, and actually kind of funny, it was a dog owned by an elderly woman that Kuang knew and loved very much. And when she passed, he rescued the dog. And he and I were dating at the time. And this, I don't know if you know shepherds, but they attach themselves to one person. And this dog attached himself to me. And so even we're still good friends, but even when we split up, I took the dog with me. And so this painting he had done before all that, and he called it her guardian, and it was meaning the woman who owned the dog who passed. And he gave me this painting, and Duke was just like right till the end. He was my guardian. And so this painting lives on a wall between my boys' bedroom. And it's so funny because I don't think they even see the painting anymore, but it's like, it's a little prayer. And it just means a lot to me, because I think Duke is guarding my boys. So that's what collecting is for me. It's so very personal, you know? And
right. So it's not her guardian anymore. It's their guardian too.
Yeah, it's our guardian. So yeah. So anyway, that's how I collect, and that's how you collect. And yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed getting a glimpse inside your house. I'm hoping to do it in person one day.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been in your house and just love your collection too. It was so much fun.
Well, we call it art clutter.
Yeah.
But
right?
we enjoy the heck out of it and enjoy every piece. And again, the relationships behind every piece and the stories that go with it, that's what really makes it fun.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with unreal art. You have to be collecting real art from real people. Mm-hmm. And it's really fun to get to know the artists and know you're supporting their way of life and putting their kids through school or putting food on their table or whatever it might be, whenever you can buy direct or from the galleries. And when you can't, you may have to go bottom feed in the auction, but don't bid against me.
Yeah, just follow Seth. You have to figure out where Seth is going and then follow him around.
I've enjoyed it, Rose. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of it.
Oh my God, Seth, thank you for being a part of it. Thanks for opening up your collection, and thank you so much. This was such a joy. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you all for participating today. It was wonderful.
Bye-bye. Come see us in Georgia.
Yeah, come with me. I'm heading out soon because we've got to appraise his collection and make sure it's insured. So
Yeah, exactly.
take care, everybody.